Hare Krishna. So we will start a new chapter today. Chapter 14. Lord Krishna explains the yoga system to Uddhava. Om Ajnana Timandasya Jnanjana Shlakna Saksurun Militam Dina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Chichitayam Anupishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svam Rupgadam Yam Dadanti Sva Padantikam Vandeham Shiu Shiu Dapadakamanam Shigam Vaishnavam Sham Shri Rupam Jarajatam Saganareknatam Vitam Tam Sajivan Satvaitam Savirutam Parjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalita Shivasakam Vitam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jatpate Gopesha Gopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanashri Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamama Haripriya Vacha Kalpta Vishakri Pasan Vivasha Patnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktavana Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this chapter 14. In this chapter, Lord Krishna establishes Bhakti Yoga as the best sadhana. So we'll start with this, reading the first verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottanam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jyamudiyet Nastmiyasya Bhadrasya Nityam Bharata Sevya Bharvatu Tamastake Bhakti Bhavti Naistake Shri Uddhava Uvacha Vadanti Krishna Shreyamsi Bhavane Brahmavadina Tesham Vikalpa Pradhanyam Uttaho Ekamutyata. Shri Uddhava said, My dear Krishna, the learned sages who explain Vedic literature recommend various processes for perfecting one's life. Considering these varieties of viewpoints, Lord Krishna, O my Lord, please tell me whether all these processes are equally important or whether one of them is supreme. So not all Vedic processes lead to the ultimate goal, which is pure love of God. Some only gradually elevate the consciousness of the living entity. So he wants Lord Krishna to reveal what is the best process. That commentary of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj. In this chapter, the supremacy of devotional service, which brings Sri Krishna under control, and the method by which devotees who desire liberation meditate upon the Supreme Lord are described. Sri Uddhava requests further clarification regarding what he has already heard from the Lord. So he also wishes for the Lord to clearly state what is the foremost sadhana. Uddhava said, the sages who know Brahman have propounded various paths for attaining the perfection of life. Please tell me which of the sadhanas is best. and most effective. So the sages who know Brahman have promoted various paths, and Uddhava knows it. He is learned. He is a disciple of Brihaspati. So he's asking Krishna, I know all these paths, but which is the most effective? Which of those sadhanas is the best and the most effective? Text 2. Bhavato darita svamin bhakti yoga napekshita nirasya sarvata sangam yena tvaya visanmana. My dear Lord, you have clearly explained the process of unalloyed devotional service, by which a devotee removes all material association from his life, enabling him to fix his mind on you. So this chapter firmly establishes pure devotional service. Pure devotional service is a super excellent process for absorbing the mind in the absolute truth. So pure devotional service is the supreme process for fixing the mind in the supreme truth, which is Lord Krishna. So the question, can everyone practice this process? A method that gives one the highest perfection is primary. Bhaktivedanta Saraswati. In this chapter it is firmly established that pure devotional service is a super excellent process for absorbing the mind in the absolute truth, Lord Krishna. Next question will be raised, whether everyone can engage in devotional service, or is such practice limited to selected few? The mind is very unsteady, and so by utilizing one's good intelligence, one must remain firmly fixed in devotional service so that one can ultimately attain the association of the Supreme Lord. And can attain the association of the Supreme Lord in his transcendental abode. This is the only intention of Lord Krishna speaking to Sri Uddhava. Now, Lord Krishna will reply. So, Krishna will now speak 11 verses and giving an introduction and then come to a conclusion. So, text 3. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, by the influence of time, the transcendental sound of Vedic knowledge was lost at the time of annihilation. Therefore, when the subsequent creation took place, I spoke the Vedic knowledge to Brahma, because I myself am the religious principles enunciated in the Vedas. So the Vedas, they ultimately recommend devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna is a reservoir of all pleasure, and his devotees directly enter into the Lord's Ladini, or pleasure-giving potency. Fixing one's mind on Lord Krishna is not possible without devotional service. One who has not developed his attraction to Lord Krishna cannot restrain the senses from inferior engagements. But with a contaminated heart, one cannot directly receive the transcendental message. The purport of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati. The transcendental objective is distinct from the objects enjoyed by the material senses, and is realized by the reception of transcendental sound vibration. In the conditional state of existence, a living entity is not capable of appreciating the transcendental sound vibration of the Vedas. For it that Brahma was instructed by the Supreme Lord about the supreme religious principles, but for those who are attached to sense gratification, Bhagavad Dharma, is not easily understood. So it's kind of definition of Bhakti Yoga that we are hearing in the next verse. Lord Brahma spoke this Vedic knowledge to his eldest son Manu, and the 7 great sages headed by Bhrigu Muni then accepted the same knowledge from Manu. In the beginning, a definition of the purpose, a definition of Bhakti Yoga, of pure devotional service is given. Definition: Bhakti Yoga is a natural activity of one whose nature is completely purified by the association with the Supreme Lord. Other poses are meant for those whose nature is still affected by material modes, and thus such poses, along with their results, are themselves also materially contaminated. So devotional service is a pure spiritual process. By executing devotional service with a pure consciousness, one comes directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme, pure, Pavitramidam Uttamam, Bhagavad Gita 9.2. The same knowledge spoken by Brahma to Mani is still available via the Guru Parampara. So there are different nature. Everyone has a mentality, and from that mentality desires spring up, and therefore there is a need of varieties of philosophy and religion. So the Munis, they cannot agree with each other. They are only dealing with the shadow of reality. Because it's absurd to think that we can know the absolute truth by mental speculation. Text 5-7. From the forefathers, headed by Bhrigu Muni and other sons of Brahma, appeared many children and descendants who assumed different forms as demigods, demons, human beings, Huyakas, Siddhas, Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, Kindevas, Kinnaras, Nagas, Kimpurushas, and so on. All of the many universal species, along with their respective leaders, appeared with different natures and desires generated from the 3 modes of material nature. Therefore, because of the different characteristics of the living entities within the universe, there are many Vedic rituals, mantras, and rewards. So according to the degree of aversion to the Supreme Lord, Vedic mantras have taken various shapes to fulfill the desires of sense enjoyment. That's the commentary of Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati Maharaj. Now we have text 8. Thus, due to the great variety of desires and natures among human beings, there are many different theistic philosophies of life which are handed down through tradition, custom, and disciplic succession. There are other teachers who directly support atheistic viewpoints. Can someone read the purport, please? Text 8.
Yes, Maharaj. The word Keshamchit refers to those persons in various parts of the world who are ignorant of the Vedic conclusion and thus concoct many unauthorized and ultimately fruitless philosophies of life. Pashandam Matayaha refers to those who directly oppose the Vedic conclusion. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given a most interesting example as follows. The water of the Ganges is always pure and very sweet. On the banks of that great river, however, there are several types of poisonous trees whose roots drink up the Ganges water from the soil and use it to produce poisonous fruits. Similarly, those who are atheistic or demoniac utilize their association with Vedic knowledge to produce the poisonous fruits of atheistic or materialistic philosophy.
Yes, and that. So Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj, he has a purport. While viewing the variegatedness of the material world, materialistic people are distracted from the understanding of the eternal truth. Following in the footsteps of atheistic philosophers, many unfortunate people are misguided and thus miss the opportunity afforded by the human form of life. Acceptance of the principles that are contrary to the Vedas is a prime example of misfortune. So there is some arrogance in theism. Interesting. They claim they know everything. The illusion is taking the shadow, and they declare it to be a reality without knowing the substance. That text 9. O best among men, the intelligent human beings, the intelligence of human beings is bewildered by my illusory potency, and thus according to their own activities and whims, they speak innumerable ways about what is actually good for people. So, what is the best thing for everyone? The best thing for everyone is to surrender to the Supreme Personality of God, the Lord Krishna, and thus realize one's eternal nature of bliss and knowledge. Without knowledge of the Absolute Truth, many so-called learned people are whimsically advising other whimsical people who also lack perfect knowledge of the actual goal of life. You have I will read the last lines of the purport of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj. Being without sadhu sangha, they are unable to properly worship the Supreme Lord, and this induces them to accept more and more anarthas. The person who has no faith in the Supreme Lord, who has no sadhu sangha, and who does not worship the Lord is certainly full of anarthas. Being mad after material enjoyment, they have no taste for spiritual life, and are thus denied of the opportunity of realizing the absolute truth. So speaking about what is good for people without knowing what is good for people, it is the dancing of the mind produced by the three modes, Maya Shakti. So next is a purport on Karma Mimamsakas. The Karma Mimamsakas, we get them back. Some say that people will be happy by performing pious religious activities. Others say that happiness is attained through fame, sense gratification, truthfulness, self-control, peace, self-interest, political influence, opulence, renunciation, consumption, sacrifice, penance, charity, vows, relative duties, or strict disciplinary regulation. Each process has his proponents. Don't, yes. So, can someone read the purport on the Karma Mimamsakas?
Dharma Eka refers to those atheistic philosophers called Karma Nimnamsakas, who state that one should not waste time worrying about a kingdom of God that no one has ever seen and from which no one has ever returned. Rather, one should expertly utilize the laws of karma, performing fruitive activities in such a way that one would always be well situated. Concerning fame, it is said that as long as the fame of a human being is sung in the pious planets, he may live for thousands of years in material heaven. Karma refers to Vedic texts like the Kama Sutra, as well as millions of modern books that advise one about sex pleasure. Some people state that the highest virtue in life is honesty, others say it's self-control, peace of mind, and so on. Each viewpoint has proponents and scriptures. Others say that law, order, and morality are the highest good, whereas still others propose political influence as the real self-interest of human beings. Some state that one should give away one's material possessions to the needy. Others state that one should try to enjoy this life as far as possible. And others recommend daily rituals, disciplinary vows, penances, and so on.
Let's hear what Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj says. Generally, people conclude that religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification are life's true objectives. The quest for fame is a kind of happiness enjoyed on the mental platform and is certainly illusory. There are many people who advocate that peace can be attained by remaining aloof from the intoxication of material enjoyment. Materialists become absorbed in the attainment of prosperity. Ascetics become obsessed with rejecting material prosperity, while others are concerned by accumulating huge stocks of grains and other food items. But these are all nothing than anarthas, just anarthas that text 11. All the persons I have just mentioned obtain temporary foods from their material work. Indeed, the meager and miserable situations they achieve bring future unhappiness and are based on ignorance. Even while enjoying the fruits of their work, such persons are filled with lamentation. So they achieve bringing future unhappiness. It's based on ignorance, Krishna says. Even while enjoying their fruits, these persons are filled with lamentation. Amazing. The entire panorama of material existence is actually uninteresting and dull. So one may, the entire panorama of material existence is actually uninteresting and dull, manda. One can make no real progress within the material world. No position in this world is permanent. So people are going after what they want, putting themselves in the center and accept religions on that basis. But on that basis making progress, it's not possible. 12. O learned Uddhava, those who fix their consciousness on me, giving up all material desires, share with me a happiness that cannot possibly be experienced by those engaged in sense gratification. So the actual purport of Vedic knowledge is explained in this verse. Even sattva guna cannot define perfection. Read the last part of the purport here. The Lord Transcendental Form is filled with infinite, wonderful qualities, and happiness of being with the Lord is unlimited. Unfortunately, materialistic people cannot possibly imagine such happiness, since they are not at all inclined to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the tiny soul connects with the unlimited by bhakti, and the result is transcendental happiness. So what is the process? The process fixing the mind on Krishna and not on the sense objects. Text 13. 13. One who does not desire anything within this world, who has achieved peace by controlling his senses, whose consciousness is equal in all conditions and whose mind is completely satisfied in me, finds happiness wherever he goes. So one who has developed Krishna consciousness is never separated from happiness, because Lord Krishna is all-pervading. Now we have here a quote of Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati Maharaj's purport. So those who are capable of controlling their senses, who are not bewildered by material desires, who do not consider anyone as inferior to them, who are always satisfied, in which condition they are put into by the Supreme Lord, and who have no inclination to possess anything within this material world, can experience happiness everywhere. In this regard, one should carefully consider this verse from Chaitanya Chandramritam by Prabodhananda Sarasvati. Kaivalyam narakayate tridasapur akasa puspayate Turtante nikriya kalasarpapatali potakta damstrayate Vidimainradisa kitayate vishvam punam sukayate Sakaunyakataksa vaibhava vatam kalam eva stuma. For those who have attained the merciful sight glance of Lord Chaitanya, impersonal liberation becomes as palatable as going to hell. The heavenly cities of the demigods become as enticing as flowers imagined to be floating in the sky. The poisonous fangs of untamable black snakes of the senses are broken. The whole world becomes full of joy, and Brahma, Indra, and all other great demigods become as insignificant as tiny insects. Let us glorify that golden complexion, Lord Chaitanya. So this is the process. If somewhere or other we fix our mind on Krishna, so follow this process and mature. That's the message. 14. One who has fixed his consciousness on me desires neither the position or abode of Lord Brahma or Lord Indra, nor an empire on the earth, or no sovereignty in the lower planetary systems, nor the eightfold perfection in yoga, nor liberation from birth and death. Such a person desires me alone. This is a similar verse in the 6th canto spoken by Vitrasur. But now Krishna will speak more about the intimacy of his relationship with his devotees. Text 15. My dear Uddhava, neither Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Shankarsan, the gods of fortune, nor indeed my own self is as dear to me as you are. So now the Lord describes his love for his devotees. None of these great personalities is as dear to the Lord as his pure devotee Uddhava. We will read the second part, second half of the purport. Here, starting with Srila Madhvacharya cites from the Vedic literature the example that a gentleman sometimes neglects his own interest, and that of his children to give charity to a poor beggar. Similarly, the Lord gives preference to a helpless devotee who depends completely on his mercy. The only way to obtain the Lord's mercy is through His causeless love. And the Lord is most lovingly inclined toward those devotees who are most dependent on Him, just as ordinary mothers and fathers worry more about their helpless children than about those who are self-sufficient. Thus, even if one lacks any material qualification, one should simply depend upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead without any other interest, and surely one will achieve the highest perfection of life. So the Lord is most lovingly inclined to those devotees who are most dependent on Him. And we will hear also from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. How much is the devotee dear to you, Sridhar Swami says. Even Brahma, my own son Shiva, arising from my Svarup, Sankarshan, my brother Lakshmi, my wife and my own form, are not as dear to me as the devotee. However, out of great joy he praises Uddhava specifically. Though Brahma and others are also devotees, their identity as son, Amsa, brother or wife is more prominent than their devotee portion, according to the rule that things are designated by predominant qualities. They should be designated as son, Amsa, brother and wife rather than as devotees. In persons like Nanda and Yasoda, their bhakta portion is much greater than their identity as parents because of the greatness of their prema. Thus they are called devotees rather than parents. They are dearest to Krishna. Darsyam tam vidam loka atmano bhaktavasyatam. The Lord displays the attribute of coming under the control of His devotees. Thus they are called devotees, and they bring Krishna under their control. The excellence of Yasoda is praised. That nenim virinsho nabhava, nenam virinsho nabhava nashya apyanga samsraya, vashadam debre gopiyat tat papa vimuktidat. Neither Lord Brahma nor Lord Shiva nor even the gods of fortune, who is always the better half of the Supreme Lord, can attain from the Supreme Lord the deliverer from this material world such mercy as received by Mother Yasoda. Another meaning is, among all devotees you are the dearest. Hear this from my mouth. Among all devotees, Uddhava is the best. The gopis, however, are the best of all, since Uddhava prayed for the dust from their feet. That is the conclusion of the Vaishnavas. Text 16. With the dust of my devotees' lotus feet I desire to purify the material worlds which are situated within me. Then I always follow the footsteps of my pure devotee who are free from personal desire, wrapped in thought of my pastime, peaceful, without any feelings of enmity, and of equal disposition everywhere. So you may remember the discussion before when, in the 10th canto, when Sudam visited Krishna in his palace, and we know he was nicely received by Krishna, was worshipped, and gods of fortune was fanning him. But then when, after the visit, Uddhava walked back to his home place. And the point came up, why did Krishna let him walk? He could have given him a chariot and brought him home. But the answer is this verse. With the dust of my devotees' lotus feet I desire to purify the material worlds which are situated within me. So he wanted Sudam to walk and purify all the land. The principle here is devotional service can only be attained from the dust of the lotus feet of my devotees. Yes. Someone can read the purport, please.
Just as the devotees always follow the footsteps of Lord Krishna, similarly, Lord Krishna, being a devotee of his devotees, follows the footsteps of his devotees. A pure servitor of the Lord is always meditating on the pastimes of the Lord and considering how to assist the Lord in his mission. All the material universes are situated in Sri Krishna's body, as demonstrated to Arjuna, Mother Yashoda, and others. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore there is no question of impurity in the Lord. Still, the Lord desires to purify the universes situated within him by taking the dust of the lotus feet of his pure devotees. Without the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees, it is not possible to engage in pure devotional service, without which one cannot directly experience transcendental bliss. Lord Krishna thought, I have established this strict rule that one can enjoy my transcendental bliss only through devotional service obtained from the dust of the lotus feet of my devotees. Since I also desire to experience my own bliss, I will observe the standard procedure and accept the dust of my devotees' feet. Srila Madhvacharya points out that Lord Krishna follows the footsteps of his devotees in order to purify them. As the Lord walks behind his pure devotees, the wind blows the dust of the Lord's feet in the front of his devotees, who then become purified by contact with such transcendental dust. One should not foolishly look for material logic in these transcendental pastimes of the Lord. It is simply a question of love between the Lord and his devotees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent, Saraswati Maharaj. The Supreme Personality of Godhead sends his devotees into this material world for the benefit of the fallen conditioned souls. By observing the external behavior of the devotees, it is seen that they are detached, introspective, peaceful, friendly, and equipoised. The devotees of the Lord never engage in idle talks. They are the friends of all living entities, and they are equal to everyone. However, non-devotees cannot understand the plans and activities of the pure devotees. So the Lord wants everyone to surrender to him and serve him. He loves his devotees. And that, so can someone also read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's comment, which is on the screen now?
Can I read, Maharaj?
Yeah.
Moreover, just as a devotee follows me, I, being invisible to the devotee, follow the devotee. Sukadeva has described me as Bhagavan Bhakta Bhaktiman, the Lord who is devoted to his devotee. SP 1086-59. The devotee contemplates my form, quality, pastime, and associate. Munim. Sridhar Swami explained the word Uyeya as follows. The Lord thing, let me purify the universe which exists within me. Jiva Goswami said Uyeya means let me become purified of the fault of not being able to replay the devotion of my followers. Actually, bhakti cannot exist without taking the dust from the feet of the devotees, and without bhakti, one cannot experience the sweetness of my rasa. I have established this rule. Therefore, I also should become absorbed in full sweetness of my rasa like the devotee by bhakti. Hare Krishna.
So we see here, when Krishna says, I'm like this, then we get to know him. That So otherwise, we see to material nature, we see the shadow, text 17. So those who are without any desire for personal gratification, whose minds are always attached to me, who are peaceful, without false ego and merciful to all living entities, and whose consciousness is never affected by the opportunities for sense gratification, such persons enjoy in me a happiness that cannot be known or achieved by those lacking such detachment from the material world. So, since all others, they have personal desire, they cannot experience such happiness. So pure devotees always desire to give Krishna consciousness to all others. A pure devotee is not tempted or attracted when opportunities for sense gratification arise and does not fall down. This is the sub and substance of the purport, text 18. That. My dear Uddhava, if my devotee has not fully conquered his senses, he may be aroused by material desires, but because of his unflinching devotion to me, he will not be defeated by sense gratification. That Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purport. For the benefit of neophyte devotees who cannot fully control their senses, the Supreme Lord said, even though the devotee could not control his senses, and thus remain attached to sense gratification, if he wants to advance in devotional service to me and thus enthusiastically engage in sadhana bhakti, so that he may healthily come to the platform of bhava bhakti, then he will never meet with this defeat. So it said, even though the devotee could not control his senses and remains attached to sense gratification. But just by engaging in this sadhana bhakti, one may healthily come to bhava bhakti. And this will not be defeated. So devotional service is so powerful that there is no need for prayaschitta, we heard before. That we will hear in text 19. My dear Uddhava, just as a blazing fire turns firewood into ashes, similarly, devotion to me completely burns to ashes sins committed by my devotees. So text 20. My dear Uddhava, the unalloyed devotional service rendered to me by my devotee brings me under their control. I cannot be thus controlled by those engaging in mystic yoga, Sankhya yoga, pious work, Vedic study, austerity, or renunciation. This is 1920.
जब करना है अब बोल देना है मेरे को कर रहे हैं नहीं कर रहे हैं हमको बता रहे हैं ओके
Text 20.
अभी आएंगे
Yeah. Okay, can we continue? That purport by Bhaktivedanta Saraswati on 20. Many people think that they can achieve great benefit by studying the
यहाँ पर कौन है एक कौन लगा रहा है
Srinivas Gopal Prabhu, please. Thank you. Many people think that they can achieve great benefit by studying the Vedas, by performing austerities, by renouncing material enjoyment, by cultivating Sankhya philosophy, and by study of Vedanta. However, all these practices are not required for engagement in the service of the Supreme Lord. Only unalloyed devotional service is capable of satisfying the Supreme Lord. So Krishna says that we should be confident in devotional service, because devotional service itself will purify and remove all attraction to this world. 21. Only by practicing under unalloyed devotional service with full faith in me, one can obtain the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am naturally dear to my devotees who take me as the only goal of their loving service. By engaging in such pure devotional service, even the dog-eaters can purify themselves from the contamination of their low birth. That is text 21. That the purport of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj says the propensity for material enjoyment among those who are very fond of eating dogs is so strong that they have very little faith in the service of the Supreme Lord. Devotees of the Lord are not interested in eating abominable food. They give up all varieties of sense gratification and attract the attention of the Supreme Lord by remaining completely dependent upon Him. The devotees love the Supreme Lord as their most dear friend, and as such, the Lord takes pleasure in their devotional activities. Simply by developing the propensity for rendering devotional service to the Lord, the people of this world are now engaged in acts of sense gratification and can become liberated from their material conception of life. This is Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj. So, but only by the essence here is only by devotional service can one obtain Krishna, and therefore it is the highest. Advancing in Krishna consciousness, faith increases, and realizations comes that we hear in the next verse. Neither religious activities endowed with honesty and mercy, nor knowledge obtained with great penance can completely purify one's consciousness if they are bereft of loving service to me. So, yes, this was 22, and that means pious work, truthfulness, mercy, penances, and knowledge partially purifies one's existence, partially. But they do not take out the root of material desire, these processes. Thus the same desires will reappear at a later time. So the central point is, to purify one's consciousness, one needs to practice devotional service. Pure devotional service to the Lord uproots one's material desires, so that there is no danger of relapsing into a degraded life of material gratification. So everything is incomplete and imperfect without loving devotional service to the Lord. And now Lord Krishna will start describing the characteristics of pure devotional service. So if one's hair do not stand on end, how can the heart melt? And if the heart does not melt, how can tears of love flow from the eyes? If one does not cry in spiritual happiness, how can one render devotional service to the Lord? And without such service, how can the consciousness be purified? So pure devotional service rendered in love of Godhead is so powerful that it burns to ashes any obstacle encountered on the path of progress. The Lord states in this chapter that loving service to Him is a blazing fire that burns to ashes all impediments. So, in contrast, the small fires of mental speculation or mystic yoga can be extinguished by sinful desires at any moment. Thus by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one should ignite a blazing fire of loving service to the Lord and burn to ashes the network of material illusion. So this is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. One who chants Krishna's names properly, he feels ecstasy. He feels ecstasy. Text. I read the purpose of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj. One's heart cannot be purified while one is constantly engaged in material enjoyment. Our desires can be purified only by dovetailing them in the service of the Supreme Lord. If we don't engage ourselves in the Lord's service, then the spirit of material enjoyment will keep us forever bound to the fruits of our actions. When the heart melts, one sheds tears of love and the hair of the body stands on end. Until that time, material enjoyment, which is always mixed with frustration, will continue to misguide us. That read also the purport of Vishwanath Bhakti Thakur. Bhakti purifies the antakarana completely, whereas other processes do not. That bhakti is understood by the presence of symptoms, like the air standing on end. The heart melts by bhakti. Without that melting of the heart caused by bhakti, how can one's hair stand on end, and how can one have tears in the eyes using some other process? Without hair standing on end and tears in the eyes, how can the heart become purified? The Kali Yuga avatar has said, Shrutam apyapanishadam dureharikatam rita yana santi davakshita kampasru pulakadaya. Though one has heard the Upanishads, if one has not heard the sweet topics of the Lord, melting of the heart, tears and hair standing on end, will not take place. So, hearing the Upanishads is not sufficient. Thus, Nishkam Karma Yoga and other processes purify the heart to some degree, according to many scriptural proofs. However, direct realization of the Lord will occur with the presence of contamination remaining after those processes. Prema Bhakti burns up that contamination, but the fire of Jnana does not. Text 24. A devotee whose speech is sometimes choked up, whose heart melts, who cries continually, and sometimes laughs, who feels ashamed and cries out loudly and then dances. A devotee thus fixed in loving service to me purifies the entire universe. So, that is 24. Yes, we will read the purport of this. Can someone read the purport here, starting with Vaggadgada?
Vaggadgada refers to a highly emotional state in which the throat is choked up and one cannot express oneself. Vilajja indicates that a devotee sometimes feels embarrassment due to bodily functions and memories of past sinful activities. In this condition, a devotee loudly cries out the holy name of Krishna and sometimes dances in ecstasy. As stated here, such a devotee purifies the three worlds. By melting of the heart, one becomes very steady in spiritual life. Normally, one whose heart easily melts is thought to be unsteady. But because Lord Krishna is the stable foundation of all existence, one whose heart melts in love of Krishna becomes most stable and cannot be disturbed by opposing arguments, bodily suffering, mental problems, supernatural disasters, or the interference of envious persons. Because such a devotee is in loving service to the Lord, he becomes the very heart of the personality of Godhead.
So persons who are eternally engaged in Lord's service sometimes sing the Lord's holy name loudly and dance in ecstasy, sometimes display the softness of their heart by speaking in a voice that is choked up, sometimes laugh and sometimes cry without caring for others. Only such devotees can purify the 14 worlds. Purport of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj. Now Krishna will start explaining how to attain that goal. Just as gold, when melted in fire, gives up its impurities and returns to its pure, brilliant state, similarly the spirit soul absorbed in the fire of Bhakti Yoga is purified of all contamination caused by previous fruitive activities and returns to its original position of serving me in the spiritual world. So only the fire of love of Godhead can cleanse one's soul and send one back home, back to Godhead, to engage in eternal service to the Lord. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati Maharaj writes, when gold is melted in fire, all of the impurities of base metals are removed. Similarly, I repeat it again. Similarly, when the conditioned soul, whose only engagement are those of sense gratification, put themselves in the fire of devotional service, then their aspirations for material enjoyment are reduced to nil, so that they can easily transfer the path back to God. That is the same idea. So one's consciousness is ablaze with when it's ablaze with devotion, it purifies one's consciousness. So then in text 26, Krishna speaks about how to revive our power to see Krishna. When a diseased eye is treated with medicinal ointment, it gradually recovers its power to see. Similarly, as a conscious living entity cleanses himself of material contamination, by hearing and chanting the pious narrations of my glories, he regains his ability to see me, the absolute truth, in my subtle spiritual form. So the reviving our power to see Krishna. Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati Maharaj, purport 26. When one becomes too accustomed to a life of sense gratification, one loses sight of the ultimate goal of life, which is to regain the association of the Supreme Lord by smearing medicinal ointment. Diseased eyes may gradually revive their power to see. Similarly, by cultivating Krishna consciousness, one can attain the eternal service of the Supreme Lord in transcendental love. So now we have 27. 27. The mind of one meditating upon the object of sense gratification is certainly entangled in such objects. But if one constantly remembers me, then the mind is absorbed in me. So anushmarat, or constant remembrance, is possible for one who always chants and hears the glories of Lord Krishna. It will not happen by chance. One who constantly thinks of the objects of material gratification becomes attached to them. Similarly, one who constantly keeps Lord Krishna within his mind becomes absorbed in the Lord's transcendental nature and thus becomes qualified to render personal service to the Lord in his own abode. So one must be serious and sincere to endeavor to always think of Krishna. So for us it means where I'm going to absorb my mind in. That's the question. 28. Therefore, one should reject all material processes of elevation, which are like the mental creations of a dream, and should completely absorb one's mind in me. By constantly thinking of me, one becomes purified. Can someone read the purport? The word Bhavitam?
Hare Krishna. Maharaj.
Yep.
The word bhavitam means cause to be. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita, material existence is an unstable platform, subject to the constant disturbances of creation and annihilation. One who absorbs his consciousness in Krishna, however, attains to Krishna's nature and is therefore described as Madhava Bhavitam, or one situated in real existence because of Krishna consciousness. The Lord here concludes his analysis of different processes of human perfection.
Yes. Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj, the ultimate goal of life for the conditioned soul is to engage in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord by surpassing the three stages of consciousness: wakefulness, dreaming, and deep sleep. This brings us beyond the modes. This brings us to the substance. Being conscious of the eternal self, one should give up the association with women and those intimately associated with women. Sitting fearlessly in a solitary place, one should concentrate the mind on me with great attention. Can someone read the purport?
Can I read, Maharaj?
Please do.
Yeah. One who has intimate contact with women and becomes attached to them will gradually lose his determination to go back home, back to Godhead. Association with lusty men gives exactly the same result. Therefore, one is advised to be fearless and to sit down in a solitary place or place where there are no lusty men and women committing spiritual suicide. Without fear of failure or of unhappiness in life, one should remain with sincere devotees of the Lord. Athandrita means that one should not compromise this principle but should be rigid and cautious. All this is possible only for one who is Atmavan or fixed in practical understanding of the eternal soul. Can I read this Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also, Maharaj?
You can also read, yeah, short.
Yeah, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The path of karma proclaimed by Vatsyayana in Kama Sutra should be rejected particularly because one who has determination, Atmavan, will lose his determination in association with women. He should reside in a solitary place where there is no fear. Shame. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. So, in the purport, there was that sentence, one should not compromise this principle, but should be rigid and cautious. Because association with the opposite sex must be avoided, because it fixes one's mind in sensual enjoyment. And these impressions are difficult to remove. They cause the greatest suffering, exerting. Of all kinds of suffering and bondage arising from various attachments, none is greater than the suffering and bondage arising from attachment to women and intimate contact with those attached to women. So this has ruined the lives of many. You can see that attachment to women is the greatest suffering. That's in the purport here. An association with lusty men is often more dangerous than association with women and should be avoided by all means. Commentary of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj on this verse 30. There are innumerable verses in the Bhagavatam describing the intoxication of material lust. Being forgetful of the Supreme Lord, the conditioned souls consider themselves to be the enjoyers of all they survey, and thus they become bound by the three modes of material nature. This is the cause of their suffering, because the living entities are pleasure-seeking by nature. In conditional life, they naturally endeavor to reach the peak of material happiness by enjoying the association of women. Therefore, devotees should carefully avoid the intimate association of women, as well as men do who are attached to women. So that's avoid association with the opposite sex. That now Uddhava will ask another question, which Krishna will answer until the end. Question of Uddhava. My dear lotus-eyed Krishna, by what process should one who desires liberation meditate upon you? Of what specific nature should this meditation be, and upon which form should he meditate? Kindly explain to me this topic of meditation. So Uddhava is asking questions for the benefit of those who are not yet of the platform of love of God. That take 32. The Supreme Personality is 32 and 33. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, sitting on a level seat that is not too high, not too low, keeping the body straight and erect yet comfortable, placing the two hands on one's lap and focus the eyes on the tip of one's nose, one should purify the pathways of breathing by practicing the mechanical exercises of Puraka, Kumbhaka and Reshaka, and then should reverse the procedure Reshaka, Kumbhaka, Puraka. Having fully controlled the senses, one may thus practice pranayama step by step. So, purport. According to this procedure, the hands are to be placed palms upwards, one on top of the other. So, thus one may practice pranayama through mechanical breath control in order to achieve steadiness of mind. And then in the Yoga Shastra, Antarlaksha, Bhaya, Trishta, Stira, Shita, Susanghata, the eyes which generally see externally must be turned inward, and thus the mind is steadied and fully controlled. So the mind becomes unflickering, and then one can meditate. 34. Beginning from the Muladhara chakra, one should move the life air continuously upward, like the fibers of the lotus stalk, until one reaches the heart, where the sacred syllable Om is situated like the sound of a bell. One should thus continue raising the sacred syllable upward the distance of 12 angulas, and there the Omkar should be joined together with the 15 vibrations produced with Anushvara. It's quite technical. So can someone read the purport, short one?
It appears that the yoga system is somewhat technical and difficult to perform. Anuswara refers to a nasal vibration produced after the 15 Sanskrit vowels. The complete explanation of this process is extremely complicated and obviously unsuitable for this age. From this description, we can appreciate the sophisticated achievements of those who in former ages practiced mystic meditation. Despite such appreciation, however, we should stick firmly to the simple, foolproof method of meditation prescribed for the present age. The chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So don't worry too much about the technicalities in this verse. 35. Being fixed in Omkar, one should carefully practice the pranayama system 10 times at each sunrise and noon and sunset. Thus, after 1 month, one will have conquered the life hair. That's only the beginning. Good. Then, keeping the eyes half closed and fixed on the tips of one's nose, being enlivened and alert, one should meditate on the lotus flower situated within the heart. This lotus has 8 petals and is situated on an erect lotus stalk. One should meditate on the sun, moon, and fire, placing them one after another within the whorl of that lotus flower. Placing my transcendental form within the fire, one should meditate upon it as the auspicious goal of all meditation. That form is perfectly proportioned, gentle and cheerful. It possesses beautiful long arms, a charming, beautiful neck, a handsome forehead, a pure smile, and glowing shark-shaped earrings suspended from two identical ears. That spiritual form is the color of a dark rain cloud and is garbed in golden yellowish silk. The chest of that form is the abode of Shivatsa and the goddess of fortune, and that form is also decorated with a conch shell disc, club, lotus flower, and garland of forest flowers. The two brilliant lotus feet are decorated with ankle bells and bracelets, and that form exhibits the Kaustubhya gem along with an effulgent crown. The upper hips are beautified by a golden belt, and the arms are decorated with valuable bracelets. All of the limbs of that beautiful form capture the heart, and the face is beautified by merciful glancing. Pulling the senses back from the sense objects, one should be grave and self-controlled and should use the intelligence to strongly fix the mind upon all of the limbs of my transcendental body. Thus one should meditate upon that most delicate transcendental form of mine. So this is also described in Kapila Muna's teachings. 43. One should then pull the consciousness back from all the limbs of the transcendental body. At that time one should meditate only on the wonderful smiling face of the Lord. 44. Being established in meditation on the Lord's face, one should then withdraw the consciousness and fix it in the sky. Then giving up such meditation, one should become established in me and give up the process of meditation altogether. That interesting. It's 44. Can someone read the purport, please? As one becomes established.
As one becomes established in pure consciousness, the duality of I am meditating, and this is the object of my meditation, vanishes, and one comes to the stage of spontaneous relationship with the personality of Godhead. Every living entity is originally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and when that forgotten eternal relationship is revived, one experiences remembrance of the absolute truth. In that stage described here as Mad Aroha, one no longer sees oneself as a mediator, nor the Lord as a mere object of meditation, but rather one enters the spiritual sky for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge in direct loving relationship with the Lord. Uddhava originally inquired about the procedure of meditation for those desiring liberation. The word labdha padam indicates that when one fixes the mind upon the Lord's face, one achieves full liberation. In the post-liberation phase, one then proceeds to render service to the original personality of Godhead. By giving up the concept of being a mediator, one casts off the last small remnant of illusionary energy and sees the Lord as he actually is.
Hare Krishna. Yes. 45. One who has completely fixed his mind on me should see me within his own soul and should see the individual soul within me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus he sees the individual soul united with the Supreme Soul, just as one sees the sun rays completely united with the sun. But in the spiritual world everything is not really effulgent, because that is the nature of spirit. Thus when one sees the individual soul as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the experience can be compared to seeing the sun's rays emanating from the sun. The Supreme Lord is within the living entity, and simultaneously the living entity is within the Lord. But in both cases, the Supreme Lord is not a living entity, is a maintainer and controller. How happy everyone could be by taking Krishna consciousness and finding the Supreme Lord within everything and everything within Krishna. Liberated life in Krishna consciousness is so pleasurable that the greatest misfortune is to be without such consciousness. So Krishna is kindly explaining in many different ways the supreme the supremacy of Krishna consciousness, and fortunate persons will understand the sincere message of the Lord. So the soul within the Supreme Lord sees Krishna within your soul and see you within Krishna. So Krishna is the soul and the soul is within Krishna. Krishna is in the soul and the soul is within Krishna. Last verse, when the yogi thus controls the mind, his mind by intensely concentrated meditation, his illusory identification with material objects, knowledge and activities is very quickly extinguished. So because of false material identification, we accept our own body and mind, the bodies and minds of others, and supernatural and material control to be ultimate realities. The supernatural control refers to the bodies and the minds of the demigods, who ultimately are humble servitors of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the mighty sun, which displays immense potencies, obediently treats its universal path by the order of Lord Krishna. It is clearly seen in this chapter that Hatha Yoga, Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, etc. are part and parcel of Bhakti Yoga and do not actually exist separately. The goal of life is Lord Krishna, and one must eventually come to the stage of pure devotion if one desires to perfect one's meditation or yoga practice. In the mature state of devotion, as described in this chapter, one becomes free from the artificial duality of meditator and object of meditation, and one spontaneously engages in hearing about glorifying the Supreme Absolute Truth. Such activities of Bhakti Yoga are natural because they spring from spontaneous love. When one revives one's original nature as a loving servitor of Lord Krishna, other yoga processes cease to be interesting. Uddhava was a pure devotee even before the Lord began his instruction. Therefore it was not expected that Uddhava would give up the supreme platform of being a personal associate of the Lord to take up the mechanical exercises of the yoga system. Bhakti Yoga or devotional service is so elevated that even in the beginning stages of practice one is considered liberated, because all of one's activities are executed under the proper guidance for the pleasure of the Lord. In the Hatha Yoga system, one is concerned with bodily control. In the Jnana Yoga, one is concerned with speculative knowledge. In both systems, one endeavors selfishly, desiring to become a great yoga or a philosopher. Such egoistic activities described in this verse as kriya. One must give up the illusory designation of dravya, jnana and kriya and come to the priceless stage of loving service to the Lord. So the other processes are a part and parcel of the bhakti process, but they involve still some false ego. And now that's we come to the next chapter, that this chapter, the next chapter, describes in summary that if one wants to attain mystic perfections, one must meditate on parts of the Supreme Lord that embodies this mystic perfection, these abilities or these potencies to attain this mystic perfection. And it will explain how to do that. And so all these yoga mystic perfections, 18, 8 primary and 10 secondary, will be described. And at the end, Krishna says they are all impediments on the path of devotional service. So we are not interested in them. But still we are going to read them after the break. So it is now, the time is now in Indian time. It's 10 to to 5. So we will resume in 10 minutes at 5 o'clock, and then read this chapter 15. There will not be so much comment. We will read to it and make here and there a small comment. Thank you. See you in 10 minutes. Hare Krishna.
Recording stopped.